Cool, we're recording. Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Alice Hiller. I'm here to introduce the first of our Voicing Our Silences monthly creative spaces. We're aiming to support poets writing to expand the possible. Our first workshop will be led by Arji Manuelpillai and Maia Elsner around the idea of political poetry. Arji and Maia will speak together and perform a selection of their political poems before leading workshop exercises that will help you develop your own political poetry. Arji Manuelpillai came to poetry through rap and freestyling. This summer, he published his debut, Mutton Rolls, with Outspoken. Arji's poems are poignant, witty, and hard-hitting, with titles from Brown Boys in Kavos and Raves Aren't Places to Cry, to After Being Called a Paki, and Because It's in the Lonely Planet, Top 5 Places to Visit. They politicise the personal. They chart what it is to grow up brown in Britain of Sri Lankan heritage. Arji also celebrates the high summers of hedonism, which all of us look back towards with a degree of longing in these more restricted times. Like Arji, Maia Elsner has a multiple heritage background, encompassing Mexico and the Shoah. Her poems work between worlds, religions, and languages. They ask, where does any of us come from? And to whom do we belong? While interrogating migration and trauma. Maia's wonderful work has been published in British, American, and Canadian journals, including MAGMA, Stand, BRITTLE STAR, Colorado Review, and the Missouri Review, and recently anthologized in UN NUEVO SOL, British LATINX WRITERS, with Flipped Eye. I'm going to hand over to Arji and Maia now, and we'll wish us all a really good Voicing Our Silences workshop. The next one will be taking place on the 10th of November, and will feature Romanin Ante and Rachel Lewis, exploring poetry, creativity, and mental health. Arji and Maia, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Alice. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone, for having us. It's a real pleasure to be here. It feels like we're trying something new, which is great because it has the energy of doing something we've never done before. But then it also has the other thing where you guys might find certain things working better than other things. And feel free to voice that in the chat window. We're going to do a little bit of question and talking. And then before we do that, I'm going to read 2 poems, and then Maia's probably going to read 1 or 2 later on. I'm going to start with Monkey because it gives me confidence to read it. It's called Monkey. Look at me, flying through the window so the whole pub screams, smashing the bottles off the back of the bar, scattering pork scratchings on your good old days. Look at me, death staring that small child while I yank off the dartboard, frisbee it at the wisecrack just out the toilet, climbing the walls, then sliding my red balls up and down the length of the TV so everyone can see these scarlet arse cheeks. The pixelated Harry Kane making that fingers on plate sound. Look at me, bowling pool balls at old folks with older jokes about onion bargees, spearing the pool stick into your bulldog's butt. No, I will not keep calm and carry on. I'll rip the flag from the walls, swing circles on the chandelier, mane in wind, voice echoing with that joyful mantra of brown boys in the countryside. Thank you very much. Great. I'm going to do just one more before we start chatting, Maya, if that's okay. It's called After Being Called a Paki. My father used to say, the hardest oranges to peel are the soft and the sweetest. When he first came to England, he worked double the hours, took the jobs no one else would. When his roommate was beaten outside Vauxhall tube station, he hardly spoke for a month. My father told him knuckle down. The only answer was to work harder. Tonight, when I tell my father what happened, he covers his mouth with his hand, an orange peel attaching back onto an orange. Maya, nice one, everybody.
Thanks so much, Arji. They're amazing. It's been such an amazing honour and privilege to kind of prepare these questions, to just kind of actually engage with your work a little bit kind of deeper. So just to start off, I was wondering whether maybe you could tell us a bit about why you write poetry, or what does poetry mean to you, and does it feel particularly urgent at this moment in time?
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. It feels strange to be talking as the people who people are listening to, because not very long ago at all, Alice met me at poetry school, and we were doing a thing with Ellen Cranich, I think it was. And then Alice basically pushed and got me into being at the stanza, the first stanza in poetry school or poetry cafe. And but really it was a sense of community that really brought home why I liked poetry and why I hadn't gone back to it for a little while. I was doing like music and different stuff that was connected with words, but not directly poetry. And then coming to this community, as well as Malika's, as well as the poetry school, I started to meet people with like the same sort of vibe or obsession with language, and that sort of has given me the push to keep pushing and go on and do more work. So I think it's very important right now, because we don't have that, you know, and we haven't met in a long time. Exchanging on email is good, but I miss the real life stuff. That's why I'm really happy to be here, as I suppose everybody is. Does that answer it, Maya?
Yeah, that's great. The obsession with language is what you said, and I think that's exactly right. That what you said actually leads me quite nicely onto another question, which is it's so interesting now that so much of our experience of the world is mediated through screens and through videos and through technology. And it strikes me that your first poem that you read, Monkey, there's so much about spectatorship and ideas of spectacle. So just for me to requote, look at me climbing the walls, then sliding my red balls up and down the TV, look at me bowling pool balls. And then in Half Catholic, which is another poem in your pamphlet, you write, I watched a man pickpocket a corpse quietly as though hiding it from the sky, which is so beautiful. And I was just wondering how you explore the politics of witness in your writing. Who is being watched? Who is doing the watching? And I think that this is kind of a topic I'm fascinated by more generally, but also in this moment where we've all been at home, we've experienced so much of what's going on in the world through a screen, and so much has gone on in the world. So I was just thinking whether you had any thoughts about kind of witnessing and these kinds of issues.
Yeah, like I think it's good that you're looking at the poems in that way, because like I often think about the idea of being voyeurism as a whole, like looking over people, but also them looking in at me. What goes along with that is the expectations of people when it comes to like the writing, what they expect to read of a brown person writing poems in Britain. And the extent to which I fulfill that expectation, because I want people to be able to categorize me in a certain way. And I think in the same way with right now, currently with poems, it's like there's a need to, everyone says there's a need to fulfill, to look at certain issues, only issues that are connected to your being or whatever it is. But in my mind, I'm always like, it's all about how you're viewing the situation. So all the poems are about how people view me or how I view something else. When it's your view, I suppose that's a get out clause for if you have opinions that are different, they're still opinions as opposed to being based on fact. So I think loads of the poems come across as about observing other people or people observing me. The poem Monkey that I read, which I like reading because it's fun and it's political at the same time, after a person in Wigan, he called me a monkey, and then he did the Nazi salute. And then when I asked him in a relatively chilled out fashion, he said, oh, you know, a lot of my mates do that, but I don't do that. So he was like, so he basically created this get out clause because he felt guilty once the conversation had started. Anyway, that about 2 weeks after that, I did a workshop with the guy from Poetry Business. What's his name? Anyway, he said, pick an animal and put them in a space. And so I went with the idea of that monkey coming to life. So in a really amazing connection, I was going to invite us to perhaps do that now. So what you can do is take a piece of paper. You could think of an animal that connects to you politically if you want. So for example, on the British flag is the lions. You could pick that. Or it could be like, I've written another one like this about a bulldog. And the bulldog is something that I look after and I try to like nurture. So you could pick something connected politically like that. But I think whatever animal you choose, it will be pretty political because you chose it. So otherwise you wouldn't have chosen it. So don't be random, basically. And then take that animal and imagine it to be in a place. So pick a place. That place could be a politicized place. But again, whatever you choose, it will be something. I'm going to give you the length of one song to do that. The song is going to be not Pink Floyd. It's going to be something very short. Ready, steady, free write. This is a free write, yeah. And then later we'll figure out what works. Okay. Ready, steady, go. Okay, we've done 3 minutes and 10 seconds. If you can go through, maybe look for the peak bits, like the best bits, the bits that are standing out. And then after another minute, we'll just hear what people might have done, what animal they chose, and whether they found the task political. Another minute. Great. The song was called Life Story, Jeff, and Oliver Arnold is the artist. I've got a playlist of music like that. People who came to the jam know, like, I listen to too much really depressing classical music, so I can put that in the group afterwards. It's good, I think. Write in the chat window what animals you choose and where you put them, just out of interest. The suspense. Spider in the corner of the studio. The tiger, the lion, the mouse in the house. Rachel, you can't go wrong with the mouse in the house rhyme. A whale in the school playground. Oh, that sounds like it's going to be really good, actually. A whale in the school playground. If I had to choose one to read, that one is winning. A cat, a snake, a unicorn in the British Museum, that's a close second. A rabbit in the Guyana rainforest, eagle, fox, weasel. Jeff, you went through a whole family of animals. A set in a kitchen, a seagull, the power of freedom. Yeah, fly, armadillo in a hall, that's good. I like that one. Armadillos generally are good. I chose an eagle. And a deer, Tamsin says, great. Hopefully you got something out of that. It's good to take things that are unexpected and put them in weird places. And we don't tend to do it when we're just running about doing the normal types of writing. So I hope you got something out of that. Maya, are you going to share some work, Maya?
Yeah, if you insist. No.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I am just to kind of find something that touches on what we've been talking about. I'm going to read a sonnet that is a bit about, complicity, among other things. It's called From the Boat Window Foam Lapping. From the boat window, foam lapping at edges. You and I discuss pyrotechnics, white shattering blue. Someone lights a fuse, sparks like goldfish. Is this another world now breaking into ours, slicing the night and everything bleeding out, now raw and beautiful? Come with me and collapse, our bodies burnt and new. I want you as crabs need to scuttle over Coke caps. You count labels, advertising, Evian, Mountain Valley Spring, the genuine water company, flasks tossed like bait, fluorescent cans. The urine-coloured bags collide like jellyfish. There are no jellyfish, no Naples, no Netherlands, no Shanghai. We have the word coral and the colour, but not the monk seal's hum finding its mate. And as calcium carbonate dissolves and the shell of tiny shrimp disintegrates, you order a packet of crisps. This is how we went to war with ocean, lover by lover. In search of hawksbill turtles, we find only plastic floating and by it, cigarette butts bent like lips, and a dead penguin caressed and kissed.
What? That was fire. That was great. I didn't expect that. That was really great. That was really great.
So maybe.
That's really good.
Thanks. Well, leading on from that, maybe if I can ask you another question. So given
this
that
is
that
seamless.
one,
This is so seamless right now.
I know, we didn't even practice it. So because that one was from a boat, one thing that I'm really interested in is the politics of travel and tourism. There's an amazing essay by Jamaica Kincaid, who is a completely extraordinary Antiguan American writer and thinker. So I recommend if anyone doesn't know her work. And she talks about the tourist as kind of the most deplorable role a person can occupy in our society. And she says that partly this is because everyone in the world is trying to escape their own banality. But those many who are tourists escape their own banality by making sport of someone else's banality. And because of the way the world is, obviously, some people are more likely to be tourists than others. And it's a really interesting piece that kind of brings up a whole series of questions. So it's interesting even just to kind of think about including if you don't agree. But anyway, Arji, in your work, in white people, you touch on this, I think, a little bit with, I went to Tenerife and all I got was white people who are sun creaming, they're screaming, and they're pink as grapefruit, which is so evocative, and I can see it already. But I was hoping that maybe you could read, because it's in the Lonely Planet top 5 places to visit, and maybe you could talk about that poem.
No worries. Thanks. That's really interesting. Because it's in the Lonely Planet top 5 places to visit. She is telling me how he asked her at sunset as the sun lit the sea red and the birds punched shrapnel in the skies. She suspected something as he disappeared, just as their song sang from the beach hut, how he knelt into sandy dune where tigers once rested their rifles and metallic shells were plucked like poppies in the wake. How tears swallowed his words, will you? I used to march to make change, but since then I march just to sleep at night. That country changed me, she says, the bars, the sea views, biryani, kotta roti, plus the people are so generous. They don't hassle like Indians. They drop a bomb, wait 5 minutes, drop another to kill the rescue party. They spent that whole evening staring out to sea. She says it's their paradise. They made a pact to go back every 10 years to that bar in that country where bombs rained in no-fire zones, where bodies are hidden 60 to a hole. It's hard to put into words, he says as their fingers weave together. It's somewhere we could call our second home. The soldiers were spread across Tamil land, few tried for war crimes. I don't know why you don't move back there. So yeah, well, thanks very much. We were on a train in South India, but actually this situation happens a hell of a lot. Loads of people must have the experience of it. People will generally see me, ask me where I'm from, and then they'll say they went on holiday there. Which is a pretty I mean, I don't hold it against people, but they'll be like, oh, I went on holiday there. And then they had a really good time a lot of the time as well, because Sri Lanka was number one, at one point, the number one Lonely Planet place to visit on holiday. So I was interested in that because the couple that I spoke to, when I told them about the reality of Sri Lanka and how problematic it was, the guy's reaction was like, well, at the end of the day, how am I supposed to know that? You can't be sure of that all the time. And he said, oh, you must have gone to places that you didn't know the political history of. And I thought, yeah, that's probably actually really true. There's loads of places I would not have perhaps done the research I should have done before visiting them. And so it brought up that sort of idea of like, to what extent should we be researching and preparing before we go to a country? That includes like not being proper ignorant about the language or the food or understanding certain customs that they might have, adopting a place's traditions, perhaps for a short period of time, which is almost the opposite of going to the south of Spain and ordering like a burger and chips or whatever at a burger place. So I was interested in that. So I tried to put together those two situations, one right next to each other. And I did it through writing them separately and then connecting the dots between the two parts. Because I feel like juxtaposition, even though some people will say it's like stream of consciousness, it's closer to my consciousness than running linear narratives, which I struggle to like put down because I'm just hectic in the way that I'm thinking. So perhaps we can attempt to do something with juxtaposition as well, since we're on this topic. Some people who came to the jam might have seen this short task I'm going to ask you to do, which is to take a piece of paper like this and then basically have like a line running down like that and then another line running down like that. I'm going to draw it to show you. Try to do it a bit neater than what I'm going to do, but basically it'd be like that. So there'll be a gap in the middle, there'll be a thing down here, and there'll be a space down there. When you've done it, give a thumbs up or show your bit of paper. If you work on your phone, you can still do it, it's fine. So I would do that. Great. I think, okay, yeah, great. Mary, are you okay? Great. On one side, we're going to think about an obsession. So a friend of mine told me once, he goes, the best way, he was talking about theatre. He said the best way to talk about the migrant crisis is to talk about the washing up. And the best way to talk about the washing up is to talk about migrant crisis, because it's through the act of talking about those things that you can find the nuances of talking about the other thing. So what I want you to do is think about something in your flat that you could obsess about for a short period of time, a 1.5 minute obsession. The obsession could be doing the washing up. The obsession could be finding a poem that you like on your shelf. The obsession could be cleaning your table. Think about an obsession right now. What we're going to do is we're going to free write about that obsession in one of these columns. So we're going to write in this column. There's some people looking at that piece of paper like, oh my God, I need a new piece of paper. Don't worry, you don't have to follow this. I like writing in these boxes because it forces you to write a way that you've never written. So then it feels different. But it's something that I do. So we're going to write an obsession in here for 1.5 minutes. Yeah. You can obsess about anything. You could obsess about a TV program, anything you want. I'm going to give you 1.5 minutes. Ready, set, go. Cool. I gave you a little bit longer because it felt like quicker even for me. Just finish the sentence, you'll do. Cool. We're going to do the other book. That was Luke Howard, that record, Chaucer. I'll put the playlist in and you'll have all of them. In the other box, we're going to write something that we're not obsessing about, but we worry about perhaps. When I did this, Peter Kahn did something very similar to this, and I did it on someone I had lost, because he sort of gave us the lead in that way. He was like, think of someone or something that you've lost over the years and write a short free write on that. But it might be something that has moved you, for example. In another poem, the one about Sri Lanka, I'm watching something on my phone. I'm watching war on my phone. So then I juxtapose that with other stuff to create friction that later will make your poem. So think of something that you feel strongly about or you've had an emotional impact from, and then write for the same amount of time in the box opposite. Cool. Here I go. Yeah, and just wrapping up when you... I think the trick, so now the obvious thing to do is to link bits together. So I put one and then I draw an arrow, then I put two and then I draw an arrow like that. The trick to it is that thoughts have to lead onto each other. Similar to if you're on a bus or something and you see a sign and you say, and the sign says, is a picture of a clock. You might turn to your mate and go, oh, that reminds me, I forgot to tell you, I bought a clock. It's like trying to create that feeling. So when you see thoughts similar on both sides of the piece of paper, you want those to go from one to the next, to the next, to the next. So it seems random, but it's not that random. And that's when sort of like the magic of that happens. The breaking of that and the creation of that is what makes it really exciting. And often I think it's quite a good reflection of politics in this country, because I'm watching, like, I'm seeing pictures of Kanye, but then I'm also watching a war thing. I'm seeing like pictures of one thing, which is like relatively non-important, what we deem as non-important news, and then I'm seeing something which is really intense. And so we're desensitized almost to it. I'm looking at loads of people still writing. Everyone's just like, Yeah, anyway, that's a really good trick. And if you haven't done that sort of stuff, it's super fun, like, because it doesn't require a form in the same way. I'm really interested in that, and I'm interested in the friction between the lines and how they cut across each other. Maya, sorry.
No, never apologize. That was super interesting. I'm going to do that exercise again. It's great that we were talking about juxtaposition, because so kind of related thing that I'm really interested about in your work. Not only are you incredible at juxtaposing different moods, so just a couple of examples. In obviously My Girlfriend is the Best, which kind of is describing the public displays of affection of the speaker's brother and sister-in-law. I love your lines. She kisses him luxuriously long. Mama searches for a pot that doesn't exist. And then at the end of that poem, how she fails to call Mama auntie and doesn't eat hot food. Mama speaks quietly like a hurricane that hasn't yet hit. Just fantastic. And then your opening to Cancer, Cancer, Cancer. When I am touching myself like this, I'm either masturbating or checking that I am not dying suddenly. And I was just wondering, kind of on top of juxtaposition, you're also so humorous. So just another example in Cecilia Says We're All Fucked Up, describing the relationship between a therapist and her client. You say, I see her reading me like a public toilet door, which is just really funny. And in an IKEA flat pack, which is when a dysfunctional couple who have just had an argument sit down to set and watch a film, you say, as the sex scene creeps in, we fall to thick silence. Your eyes look anywhere but me, like I'm your dog shitting. And I was just wondering, why is humor important, or is it important? And why is it important to talk about politics? And does it feel kind of now, is it particularly kind of a good way in now, or what are your thoughts on those? I know that's about 4 or 5 questions.
No, it's cool. Me and Hannah talked a lot. Hannah did not like the dog shitting. She said that people who have dogs do not look at their dog shitting. But I was like, no, you have to, because the dog has to pick up, the person has to pick up the dog shit. Anyway, that's an aside. But the humor thing is important to me. Like, I think it's important to reflect how, if we don't reflect how it is in real life, when you're forced to have find a soft way of responding to something, then you hit it really on the nose, and sometimes it can be really over dramatic, like it can be like over the top almost, and those sorts of things worry me, which is one of the reasons naturally I turn to make things more lighthearted. Also, when they're lighthearted, they're easier to deal with and easier to get to grips with for people to read and to get connected to. I think with the juxtaposition, I'm really interested in how like you can disrupt people's expectations and meet them and then break them. And I think there's that Jericho Brown form called the duplex, which like I've done quite a few times, and I don't do many form stuff. But you could try it on the piece that you've just written now. If you look at a line and you write the line out on its own, then the line straight after that line, I want you to undermine it. So it doesn't have to be opposite. So it's not necessarily like the sky is black, the sky is not black. it just has to undermine it. So for example, last night all I thought about was you, and then the next line being, last night I couldn't stop thinking about kicking his face in, for example. Yeah, the two will be juxtaposed from each other. Have a look at the piece that you got now and try to find a line that you could do that with. And try and like think of not necessarily about the meaning, but the amount of conflict that you could put between those two lines. That could be changing the verb very slightly, or changing the way the syntax or the colloquial feel to it. But having opposites like that is very of the now as well. Great. Maybe we'll hear one or two of those. But before we do, Maia, do you want to read one more piece?
Sure. Okay. This one is not really about juxtaposition, but I guess it is about how thinking about how political events intersect into people's lives and how to kind of react and what to do with that. It's called I Cannot Promise You an Eternity, and it's written for my great-grandmother, who was a German Jewish lady who escaped from Germany to Mexico, was meant to get a boat to Canada, but when she had to run, the boat in the harbour was to Mexico. So there she went. I cannot promise you an eternity of love. You sing to me the last time I see you. You are mostly tubes and purple veins. You write and I hold steady, your frail fingers clutching the pen. Tell me again of your arrival in Mexico in 1935, of whom you left behind. I ask, does it bother you to be blind? I am stupid and 7 years old. You are concerned by the disappearance of butterflies. I lose the paper message you write, I think, on the 12-hour flight back, but I can't be sure. I admit this to my mum on my 24th birthday. Búscalo. Maybe it will turn up somewhere. Someone writes, all lost things end up on the moon. Tell me about the prison in Germany. Tell me so I can record the name you shed so the others wouldn't find you. My friend holds a full moon ritual in which we burn what we wish to forget. You receive a death threat on a Tuesday afternoon, put it in the third drawer down with all the others. You say, in the last days, you speak only German. None of us understand. In Mexico City, I find someone to translate the words you mumble in sleep. Are there enough butterflies in all the world for all the flowers? Thanks, everyone.
Nice one. No worries, Mary, and some other people had to shoot off as well. I guess we're just here for as long as we can be here. and we're completely open to you as an audience. We're really thankful for you, everybody, for coming down and being a part of this event. Maia, thanks for sharing your amazing poems.
Thank you. Oh my God.
And it was really good. I think the exercises with the questions works quite well. What do people want to share some of their poems, share some of their two-liners? I know someone's going to click on it and be like, I didn't exactly do the same exercise, but I came out with this. Did anyone actually do it? The actual correct one? Anybody want to share like two lines? Joanna?
This is just yeah. Okay, I did. So it's the juxtaposed lines, and I'd have to check my fact. It's very important to collect the socks and underwear together, except when 4 women a day getting killed in rooms like this one. Just to start.
I really, that's brilliant, and it shows the point really, really well. It shows it even in the way you read it, okay, which is really beautiful, actually. It's the disrupting which makes it so powerful. Does anyone else want to share anything? Even from the other exercise? Appia, go for it.
I would, well, not lines, but I would say I wrote about clutter in my space.
Okay.
Which I think lots of people experience, and then making a wheel. So two very different things. But what occurred to me was, you know, my papers are never in the right place. And then I felt like taking a wheel and putting it on a place I consider an altar. Then the thought occurred to me, oh God, the deities may misread my message or may misread, you know, my intention for making a wheel. So it's like, oh, suddenly I have something I want to explore and work with.
Yeah, that's really lovely, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's really cool. That it's great that you got that out of that exercise. I think that's a really good one, actually. Chaucer's written, there was a wonderful feeling in the air. Dad never talked about the war. That's a really good one as well. What we claim to be opposites or working opposite each other might not be what other people think of it to be, and that's what makes it so nuanced and powerful. Should we just do one more, Alice, then I'll pass back to you, is that right? Does anybody else want to share anything, even their thoughts about what went on or anything? Anything? Who moved there?
Yeah, can I
also
say?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Say something. I just want to say I found the whole thing really emotional, surprisingly, and thanks for the exercises; they were incredible. And to have this actual making me do this sort of thing is, I find these sorts of things really hard, but it was surprisingly fruitful. I think it's brought up a lot. So the exercises are brilliant. It's fantastic to be here. And I've got something already, which is very unusual for me to do in this situation.
That's so great, Jules. I'm so glad.
Yeah, thanks.
I feel like quite emotional. I think a lot of this year, because it's been quite intense. Also, I don't see, we don't see a group of this many people, you know, like in real life. So when you see it all together, it's kind of, it's amazing as well. So that's been a real pleasure as well. And it's been great to talk about the work and be with Maia and Alice online. So thank you very much for having us. This feels like this should be the end, is that right, Maia?
I have so many more questions, but maybe we should take them offline.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like it's something that shouldn't be overkilled. And some people said it was like an hour, so it feels correct. Yeah. Alice?
Yeah. Well, I know it's been a fantastic hour for me. I've had it's just felt very, very powerful. I've been starved of our group, of a kind of creative interchange, and it's incredible. I feel we've had a real creative interchange. We've heard you talk about your work, we've made new work together, we've had a performance, you know, and it's just under an hour. You know, if it's everything I could ask for. And what's really exciting is that we've got Romelin and Rachel coming up on the 10th of November. Isabel Baffy and I are going to be talking about voicing the body on the 1st of December to celebrate Romelin. We're celebrating her collection, Antiemetic for Homesickness. We're going to be celebrating Isabel's new pamphlet with Ignition in December. It's coming out in November. And we have got a string of poets publishing in 2021, and we are going to go again and again and again, and we are going to voice our silences, and we're going to reach out and make new work and support each other. And I think, you know, there is nothing more powerful or better that we could do. So thank you to everyone.
Yay.
Nice one.